Welcome to the Rules of the Checkride Part 2, Pilot's Evaluation Best Kept Secrets. Please, if you haven't watched the introduction, the psychology of the pilot checkride, or the rules of the checkride Part 1 videos, please exit now and watch them first. These videos follow a sequence and viewed otherwise will lessen its effects and may confuse you. First question is, what are the pilot evaluation's best kept secret? Well, there are three of them, and they are not knowing the structure of the practical test standards booklet, not knowing how many different standards are in play during a practical test, and how these standards apply during the test. What is the structure of the practical test standards booklet, hereon referred to as P.T.S.? The P.T.S. is made up basically of introduction pages. Please make sure that you read them well before Checkride Day. There are lots of relevant and important information in it. Additionally, there are areas of operation. The areas of operation in turn are divided in tasks, and the tasks have an objective. The objective is that the pilot should be able to demonstrate acceptable or satisfactory knowledge while explaining the elements that comprise a task. The elements, in turn, are divided in two groups: simple elements and complex elements. Additionally, the P.T.S. is not a training tool. It is an evaluation tool. You see, the standards found in the P.T.S. represent the minimum standards expected from pilots during a check ride. That's why the CFI must not train the students by P.T.S. standards. The CFI is required to train the pilot to higher standards than those, so that when check ride day comes, you should pass the test with flying colors. I'm a great believer and promoter of the Samurai Warrior Creed that says, cry in the dojo, laugh in battle. Which are the different standards in play during a check ride? This is the second little secret. There are three different standards in play affecting the pilot during the evaluation, and they are training standards, personal standards, and FAA evaluation standards. How does the training standards affect the pilot during the practical test? These are the first set of standards that student pilots are exposed to during their training. You probably remember when questions were asked during training, the CI affected the correct answer every time, right? Well, this expectation, although proper, begins to form a sense of perfection in which you start believing that you always have to have the correct answer. This belief, in turn, creates an enormous conflict because, on the one hand, you think you need to be perfect, and on the other hand, you know you're not. See what I mean? This conflict needs to be resolved before check ride day. However, the conflict is so subtle that the pilot hardly notices because it is embraced by the next set of standards, which are your personal standards. How does the personal standards affect the pilot during the practical test? Personal standards, in my opinion, are the most damaging standards and extremely detrimental to your passing health. And here's why. Almost all the pilots that I have tested have shown very high personal standards and expected a perfect performance. Some of them were so hard on themselves that they self-destructed at some point during the test. For others, it was worse because they were done even before the test started. It is okay to try to be perfect as long as we understand that we will never get there. In reality, there are no perfect pilots and therefore no perfect check rides. I've been looking for one of those all my life, and it has eluded me big time. You must know how to manage or eliminate the effects of training and personal standards during the check ride. How can I manage the effects of the training and personal standards? Well, in order to be able to manage the effect of training and personal standards, you need to know the third little secret. Ready for this? Pay attention now. Listen closely. The FAA evaluation standards are lower than both training and personal standards. This concept is the key to managing the effects of your standards during a check ride. Why is it so important to know these little secrets? Well, knowing these little secrets will allow you to understand and maximize your performance while being tested by the FAA standards that apply during the oral and the flight portion of the test. If you're not aware of this fact, the probability of the test ending on a bad note increases because you will be evaluating yourself during the test. And guess what? You're going to do it either by training standards or worse, by your personal standards. So, at some point during the test, you may think that you're not performing satisfactory. And then you'll start demoralizing yourself, ending in what I call a personal meltdown. When in reality, the examiner thinks that you're doing a good job. Not necessarily perfect, but your performance is within the P.T.S. standards. So the word is, recognize and ignore when your personal standards are entering the arena. Don't evaluate yourself. Let the examiner do the evaluation. It's their job. They are way better at it than you will ever be. How will I know if the practical test is satisfactory or not? The FAA requires examiners to inform pilots immediately when their performance in a given task does not meet the P.T.S. standards, not at the end of the test. This applies to the oral and flight portions of the test. When this happens, the test will be terminated. The test may be continued only with your consent. If the test is continued, you're entitled to credit for only those areas of operation and their associated tasks satisfactorily performed. Here's a little tip. If during the oral or the flight you haven't heard the examiner say, the test will be terminated now because you don't meet the FAA acceptable standards. As long as you don't hear that, it means that you're still in the race. So don't give up. Stay tough. In reality, you don't have to ask if you pass at the end. You'll know you did. What can I do if a personality conflict develops with the examiner? An examiner must not allow personal prejudices to interfere with the objective evaluation of an applicant. If a personality conflict or disagreement develops between the examiner and the applicant before any unsatisfactory performance by the applicant, the examiner or the applicant may discontinue the practical test. In this case, the examiner will issue a letter of discontinuance.